Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. You could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus, and we appreciate that. To get ready for the college season, we're continuing to bring in excellent guests. Today is no exception. Thank you, John Gasaway, for joining the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast. Please follow John at John Gasaway, capital J, capital G. He is from ESPN, as you know, an author, a teacher / professor of basketball analytics at a college, Ivy College University. And please check out his new book, Miracles on the Hardwood. It includes tons of programs that all of the listeners follow and have some history with. John, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Honestly honored. Let's dive right in. Let's dive right into the book, Miracles on the Hardwood. Congrats on the new-ish book. It encompasses history from the college basketball deities, dignitaries throughout history. 2 questions that maybe can relate to the season. What was the bulkiest challenge for crafting such a project? And then what singular relevant hoop element might hold true for this upcoming season that you dug up during your project?
Thank you. At the top, the most important thing we will discuss without a doubt. So thank you for that. In terms of actually working on it, it was striking to this author how you sign a contract that says, I'm going to write X thousands of words, possibly more than you've ever written in one spot before, tens of thousands of words. And from day 0 of the signing until you're 80% to your deadline, you're panicking and thinking, I'll never get that many words. And then literally within the space of one day, it flips to the diametrically opposed, and if anything, even worse panic of, oh my God, I've got way too much. And I just got to start cutting. So I'll do better as a sophomore. The biggest improvement is between freshman and sophomore year. That'll be me. But my editors did great work. It turned out great anyway. And as far as hoops lessons, I would only emphasize that, we living in the now, we think name, image, likeness is a huge deal, or increased velocity of transfers is a huge deal. They are. Those are big things. But researching the whole story of Catholic college basketball did bring home to me, we've had big stories before, bigger stories. And for a long time, the insistence in college basketball was we only want white people to play. And we just kind of take it for granted. Well, that changed. Yeah, it changed. But it was a 25-year thing, and it was fought tooth and nail. It was more than 25. But from the first time when people said, no, we really got to change this, people fought it for a solid quarter century. So things that I complained about in the moment, RPI, this, that, no biggie. It seems to us that those things hang around forever. They don't really. And what we're facing now in terms of strange new things, it's always been this way.
That's interesting. And I think obviously relevant in the current time frame and landscape that we're operating in, that it might not be that big of a deal, even though it's the biggest deal in this particular moment. All right, let's get to the upcoming season. It holds super seniors, like you mentioned, an endless list of transfers, reclassified youngsters. John, what does your data, your hoops mind, or your basketball IQ tell you? What particular recipe might find success this upcoming season? Is it going to be those older returning teams like a St. Bona or maybe a Richmond? Is it going to be transfer Central Station like a Texas or an Oregon? Or is it going to be one of those reclassified freshman squads like a Memphis, or some combo in between, maybe like a Kentucky or a Maryland? What algebra is going to equate to success this season for the college hoop season?
We always want to figure that out, and something about the way we're wired makes us want to start that conversation with age, either young or old. And I'm not sure there's a lot of good examples of age standing out. Obviously, Kentucky in 2012, Duke in 2015. Yes, they were young, but Baylor last year, what were they? They were pretty veteran. They had some guys who had played together for a long time, but they were not. You scroll on KenPom, they're not the oldest team in D1 last year by any means. So I think that is more the norm. The team they trounced, Gonzaga, again, same thing. Some veterans, super spectacular freshman Jalen Suggs, a mix. I love that we're going to get to see some incredibly experienced teams. You mentioned St. Bonaventure. We think we'll get some 50-year seniors that are like major conference player of the year caliber. That's unusual. I love to see it. And as far as, his transfers, is that the way to go? Has Chris Beard figured it out? I kind of feel like it is a way to go. And Fred Hoiberg at Iowa State already showed that. That was a program that had not had a lot of success before, hasn't had a lot of success since, did not have a lot of success in the NCAA tournament, which tends to be the bottom line. But, they had a good run in the Big 12 during regular seasons, and he was doing it with transfers and players going up against high level Division I competition. Why in the world would you take your chances with some skinny 17-year-old just dominating average AAU competition? Go for that proven quantity. Yeah, that can work for Chris Beard, and he'll be facing a lot of quality opponents that are doing it a different way. So it'll be fun to watch.
I think that the combination of all of those factors will equal out to some sort of success, but it's going to be exciting to watch to see what recipe tastes the best on the when we take it out of the oven.
Good metaphor.
Yeah, we always adore lists, player lists especially, like All America lists, NBA draft lists, preseason player lists. You've occasionally been known to pen a similar list every now and then. Can you provide the listeners with a player or two that might explode, that maybe is a little bit lower on one of those per se lists? Not dissimilar from Franz Wagner, Michigan last year, who found himself to be a lottery pick, and maybe Max Abmas, who now is showing up on All-America teams all over the place after averaging barely 14 points per game the season prior. So who are one or two players that we might need to keep our eye on one of these lists?
Yeah, I want to put an asterisk by Abmas because even though he did explode, I feel like still, if you went to the average college basketball fan on the street and said Max Abmas, they don't really get still how the Summit League, God, for lack of a better term, just defeated Ohio State and defeated Florida and very nearly defeated Arkansas. That's a big deal. So explode away, keep exploding, but in the spirit of the question where he has already done so. I'm going to pick two guys that are already proven quantities. I just think that they're going to put it across to a national audience this year. One is Andrew Nembhard, who nobody ever talks about with Gonzaga. He's just the steady point guard guy next to spectacular Jalen Suggs last year. The UCLA game was an absolute abject lesson because the Bruins were absolutely out of their mind on 2-point jumpers. They could not miss. And Gonzaga's, a big part of their shtick is transition offense. And when you're taking the ball out of the net at literally every trip, there's no transition offense. They were having to run half court sets. And they, some of them were like, wow, we've never done this before. But Nembhard with the ball in his hands, running the pick and roll, he had 8 assists. They won the game. They lived 40 more minutes. He is a skilled craftsman, and I think that will come through on what I think will be an incredibly talented Gonzaga team. And in that same spirit, a team that Gonzaga played early last year that actually had Gonzaga scared in a season when, they were never scared until the very end, and they were right to be, was West Virginia. And West Virginia was yelling at everybody, or everybody was yelling at West Virginia saying, you've got 2 bigs, you've got Culver playing next to Shhhh. That's not done. 3-point revolution, space and pace. And, hey, that was a big physical Big 12 team that bopped Gonzaga in the mouth. And where else have we heard that? Oh, the national championship game. That worked out pretty well. And that script was written first by Shhhh and West Virginia. Well, Shhhh and his teammates. He made a brilliant move by picking one of like 5 coaches nationally who also likes offensive rebounds as much as Bob Huggins does at John Calipari and at Kentucky. And that is a dwindling band. And I think he will really show the best advantage at Kentucky.
That's a great point. I can still remember in that West Virginia matchup where you saw it with your own eyes that Timmy definitely had trouble on the inside with the physical presence of both, Shhhh and Culver. And if you look at his first half stats there, they were not very efficient. They were not very Drew Timmy-like. So I love both of those suggestions. And I think if you have the, first team All-America Timmy returning for Gonzaga, and then you have one of the best freshmen in the nation in Chet Holmgren, you're going to have somebody that's going to take care of the ball. Nembhard is exactly a perfect candidate for that.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. So let's take a look at last season just a tiny bit. We witnessed a couple of programs that made a major step. We can include Alabama launching threes all the way to the Elite Eight. We already talked about Oral Roberts and Mac Asmus, like running pick and rolls super high, almost near half court. Syracuse, makes their, transformation from bubble to Sweet 16. That seems to happen annually. John, do you have a program or a team that might make a similar leap during the season, whether it be to subtle or massive adjustments or some sort of change that your eyes caught?
We've never thought of this team in terms of making a leap, at least not in the time I've been writing about college basketball, because they've always been at the top. But I'm going with Kansas because we tend to forget they were 21-9 last year, which by Kansas standards is, stop everything, break glass. This is an emergency. They did not even finish in the top 25 in KenPom at the end of the year, which is unheard of. Part of the reason they didn't is because they lost to a 6 seed by 34 points as their last game. And so, that's a bit of an outlier, and they're just outside the top 25. But the part I would underscore is they lost to a 6 seed by 34 points. We don't usually see that from KU, and they've reloaded. I don't think losing Marcus Garrett is trivial by any means, and I do want to see them make do without him. But I expect them to be strong and to return to form. Baylor was it last year in the Big 12. They lost to KU coming out of the COVID pause, but that was a race that was never a race. And again, speaking of things I've never seen professionally, that was weird. And I expect a return to Kansas normalcy in Lawrence this season in the form of a quote unquote leap in 2022.
So you're saying that Baylor's not going to win the league by, let's say 5 games again? That's not going to happen?
Okay. You had me at, they could win the league, but no, it's not going to be like last year where it's over by whenever it was, the Super Bowl or whatever. No.
And, we've seen Kansas have this recipe of success with smaller guards, and they bring in 2 transfers, one from Drake, one from Arizona State. And we've seen Bill Self craft a championship level team with smaller, quick, good shooting guards, and they might have that recipe right now with some returners. All right, let's hit some quick hitters, John. Do you have a Final Four sneaky team, just sneaky, lingering out there in the weeds that others might be ignoring that you admire?
A sneaky team. If you'd asked me that about 3 weeks ago, I would have said St. Bonaventure and patted myself on the back. And then I found out they've been ranked for the first time in literally 50 years. And the first unanimous pick to win the A10 in the preseason in 7 years. I thought I was on that bandwagon all alone, and then everybody's climbing on. So I don't know what's up with that. But I will say that the teams that were good last year that came up short of the Final Four that on paper still look good tend to not get talked about as much as UCLA, which did get to the Final Four. And hey, I picked UCLA to win the Pac-12 too. I get it, but keep an eye on the also ran likes of Michigan, for example. Hunter Dickinson is a big, strong guy. People were surprised by him last year. He is in theory a sophomore. Actually, he's about the same age as Drew Timme, that everybody agrees is great and is a veteran, and he is. He's great and he's a veteran. Dickinson is in that class, number one recruiting class in the nation. I expect big things from the Wolverines this year.
That makes sense. They bring in, one of the top freshmen, Caleb Houston, and then you mentioned Hunter Dickinson, a couple of the returners. That kind of makes sense. Let's get to that mid-major team. You mentioned St. Bona, that the Oral Roberts, the George Mason from so many years ago. What is that mid-major team that might catch fire in season, and we look up and they're 17-1, or maybe even riding an undefeated streak due to a good non-conference result? Or maybe can sneak up on a couple of people in March and surprise some brackets?
Yeah, here as always, we founder on the rock of what is a mid-major. It peters out somewhere in the middle of the American, so I don't want to cop out and pick somebody at the top of the American, because then I'll be deluged with, they're not a mid-major, how dare you? But let me point out, if I pick somebody at the bottom of the American, everybody's like, yeah, that's a mid-major. So that's the sneaky part of it. That is the hard one to answer. I'm going to have to take a pass until I see 40 minutes of basketball from everybody. I know what the experience decision rules say as far as who's got the most coming back and who was the best last year, but I got burned. I've been burned by majors and mid-majors on that score. I was a year ago, I was confidently talking about Wisconsin's going to roll to the Big Ten title. So sorry, listeners, if this sounds like a cop-out, it is. But I've been burned, man. And all I ask is 40 minutes, because I can't think of another sport where you learn more in the first game than college basketball. I mean, baseball is a throw of the dice with every game. NFL, who knows? It was just that day. But college basketball, yeah, I do. Who's taking the shots? Who's handling the ball? How confident do they look? It matters greatly. So we're going to come back and do this here November or whatever, and I'll have a solid.
That sounds perfect. Thanks, John. I'm begging for that 40 minutes as well. I'm sure the listeners are eager for that 40 minutes.
Just give me that 40. Yeah.
Likewise. I'm going to say we admire Belmont, like what they have returning, and love the style of play that they have. So that might be a possibility.
I was asked this question at ESPN.com, and I did say Belmont. So
all right.
I was trying not to jinx them.
Oh no!
But I know, by uttering my exact words were, if you had an invitational tournament with every team in Nashville, which is basically 4 teams, Belmont would win. They are better than Vanderbilt. They would win that tournament. So there, I said it, and I'll feel better about the Bruins when I've seen them for 40 minutes.
All right, and we apologize in advance to all the Bruin fans.
You got it out of me with your high pressure Mike Wallace interrogation style. Yeah.
All right. Please don't forget to go give John a follow on Twitter at John Gasaway. And please check out his new-ish book called Miracles on the Hardwood, available everywhere through 12 Publishing. It encompasses the past, the present, and even up to last season, and teams that are familiar and have won championships within the past 5 years. And then speaking of books, John, let's get you out of here on this one. Any book recommendations for the listeners out there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always reading something, and I want to try. Well, I wonder if the best recommendation would be in sports or just random. I liked that. This is kind of sports, kind of random, but that book by the gentleman, I'm going to forget, Range. I mean, that's just the name of the book, and it starts with Tiger versus the tennis guy. Probably which tennis guy was it? But anyway, the point is, if you specialize in something like Tiger Woods was forced to literally from birth. That can be a good way to be good, but other people don't do that, and they are good too. And if you're doing something besides 2 prominent examples are golf and chess, where the rules are set down with perfect clarity in advance, if you're doing something beside that, like, most of us in the real world are, range is really handy to have. So pick that up. It's an excellent book.
Excellent. And that might include the 10,000 hours of practice for something.
It was kind of written in rebuttal to the 10,000 hours thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. John, thank you so much. Thanks for giving the podcast a little knowledge, and thanks for talking some college hoops with us. And good luck this season. And we're looking forward to following you over at ESPN.com and picking up anything else that you might lay down. And again, Bruin fans, we're sorry. We didn't mean to jinx you.
Yeah, you're doomed now. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Cheers. Cilantro. Got everybody. Arigato.